Hello, folks, and welcome to the show. My name is Asa Morris, and this is the first episode of Season 2 of Low Strangeness. I hope you're as excited as I am because, man, oh man, I've got some really excellent topics and shows lined up for you this season, so make sure you're subbed so you don't miss any of it. It's possible that you can hear birds outside of my window. Normally I would close it, but you know what? They sound great. I'm going to leave them in. Before we get into the jazz, let's do the business. Make sure you are following us on all the socials, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok mostly, and of course our YouTube, where every week I host a paranormal news rundown show. And man, with the way things are going these days, I have a lot to talk about there. Also, lastly, I think our Patreon is finally up and running. I thought it was like 8 months ago, and it was not, because I'm an idiot and didn't see the big old button that said launch. Well, it's launched now, and our Patreon is up and running. So, if you like what we do and want to help us out, maybe help me get out of my day job so I can focus on Low Strangeness full time, that would be a dream. Well, I guess I already focus on Low Strangeness full-time, but, on top of my full-time actual job, I am very tired all of the time. All of our links are available in the show notes or at linktree/lowstrangeness. That's linktr.ee/lowstrangeness. It's confusing, I know, there's a link in the show notes. Okay, so anyway, that's the business. Now let's get into it. Into Season 2. So on Thursday, a New York Times article came out discussing the loose, general, air quotes, findings of the upcoming disclosure report, and while I considered covering that, I don't think there's any more I need to say about it that I already didn't say in this week's Weird Week episode. So if you want my, I think, pretty reasonable take, make sure you check it out. What I did decide to do to launch this season, however, is interview a close friend of mine, Caitlin Barker, who, besides being an excellent musician from my hometown and front person of the rock band Candy Ambulance, also has a string of incredibly strange dream experiences. Now, I know what you're thinking. Who gives a shit about other people's dreams? Well, generally, I agree. I don't care. However, Caitlin's experiences tend to fall more in line with the idea that maybe sometimes dreams are slightly more than dreams. So without any more malarkey, here we go. Caitlin, hi. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you just a fucking ton for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
As I'm sure I said in your intro here, which I still haven't recorded, you have a lot of weird dream and sleep-related stuff that has happened to you.
It's funny because someone's dreams are probably the most fucking boring thing you could probably talk about. Sure. With no, it's like, what is that saying? Like, dreams are like pictures. If I'm not in them and nobody's naked, I don't want to hear about it.
Yeah, I debated on whether or not I actually wanted to do this episode just because who the fuck wants to hear about dreams? But you've told me a bunch of weird sleep-related stories in the past that I was like, all right, this is going to be a little different than, nobody wants to hear about your fucking dreams.
Yeah. No, yeah. Not me in a, I'm not swimming around in a bowl of gravy. I genuinely feel like I'm right. Contacting things. And I think one of the first significant ones for me, I was probably 22. My younger brother and I were living together, and he was telling me about something he was learning about electrons, and it was kind of blowing my mind. Then he was launching off on this chateau in southern France. It's like a commune now, but it's this famous chateau, and that's all he says to me. That's it. I'm like, I'm tired. I gotta go to bed. And I had a sleep paralysis moment before I went to sleep of green netting. Do you ever see laser shit when you're in a sleep paralysis thing? It was like a net of green.
No, but if I'm in a hypnagogic state and there's a sound in the bedroom, I will get a black and white pattern in my vision, sort of like TV static, but definitely more of an actual pattern, like chevrons or stars or things like that.
Okay.
But not a
Yeah.
green net, no.
Yeah, this was like just very, just like a net, but it was green and it was like this kind of like that's what I felt like put me to sleep. And so
Oh,
when I
interesting.
yeah, it felt like a boom kind of thing. And when I came to in the dream, I was in this library, and there were like torches on the wall, and I picked up the torch and was kind of like going down different corridors trying to find something or the purpose that I was there. And then this little frog hops out and is trying to tell me to go the opposite way, but I knew that it was lying to me. So I kept on the way that I was going, and I found this secret room with even more books in it. And as I'm going through these books, um, there's this huge, like monstrous figure that shows up behind me, and we end up getting into this like tussle wrestling thing, and I sat on its shoulders, and it had like a almost like this is why I did this little ponytail going on, and I just grabbed it and I twisted and I twisted and I twisted until the head popped off, and it like shrunk immediately, like, and I just had this tiny, and I mean his head beforehand was like the size of my torso, so it was like this noticeable like shrinking up. And so I got up in the morning and I told my brother about the dream, and he was like, oh, holy fucking shit. Like, the whole thing that I was going to tell you about that chateau is that it's historically, like, conspiracy theory known to have been the place where Knights Templar stored the existence, like, the proof of heaven and hell, and one of those things was supposed to be a shrunken demon head.
What?
Yeah.
Um, what, what was the name of the chateau?
It's the Rennes Chateau, Rennes.
Oh, fuck, yeah, I'm familiar with it. It was
Yeah.
Holy Blood, Holy Grail. I think they talk about it.
Yeah.
Um, Interesting. Wild. And you had no knowledge of it prior to that.
No. So I definitely, and I took accountability. I was like, okay, let me try to, and also like I grew up with no internet. I didn't have the internet until I was 25 years old. Um, so at this point, I wasn't like, because I've gone over this. I'm like, did you collective consciousness pull this out from somewhere? Like maybe I fell
Sure.
asleep in front of the fucking History Channel at some point and like brought this in. It was such a weird, like, I with like the netting happening beforehand, and then like the frog lying to me, which I feel like serpent creatures are like, and like amphibious creatures are like kind of like representative as like we will lie to you.
Sure, there's the snake in the Bible, the general
Yeah.
reptilian fucking conspiracy theory. Yeah,
Yeah.
reptiles bad. Well, I guess he's an amphibian, but either way.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna leave space for me to maybe be having pulled this from somewhere, but it didn't feel like it in the morning. I remember feeling very scared, and then I was just like obsessed with researching the cult for a couple weeks, and then it
Yeah.
kind of like faded away.
Rennes le Chateau, was that the one where the priest like all of a sudden had mysterious amounts of money and he like renovated the whole place?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I had no idea about the demon head. I've only read a little bit about the place, but that's interesting.
So I was checking it back up on Wikipedia, and so for whatever that tells you, but so yeah, it's like on that site the thing was just like it's a conspiracy theory. There's supposedly a lot of information stored by the Knights Templar, and then whatever channel my younger brother had been on, which like he's like a big like I was on the dark web for 12 hours last night, and I'm like
Yeah.
that shit. He's like very into conspiracy theories, but so that was his. He's like, yeah, I was just reading that like supposedly something that they have is a shrunken demon head as like proof of the existence of heaven and hell.
Did you ever try to map out your path in the dream and maybe overlay it over what Rennes le Chateau's floor plan looks like?
At this point, I feel like it might have been too long for me to not, because I've looked at the chateau since.
Sure,
So
yeah. Your
I
memory
might
would be
source
corrupted.
memory. Yeah, I might like do a little source memory thing and like just think about it.
For
is what,
sure.
like exactly what was in the dream. I felt like I was very contained, like I was in like a more secret space the whole time. So
Yeah.
it felt like a sort of like just like a self-contained, like basement-y vibe.
How often does the green net thing happen?
I can recall maybe two other times. I think I told you about the time when I was very little. We had just moved. Um, and I woke up with like a green, like the idea of like green, it's like neon almost, like this green color just like flashes into my mind, or I feel like I see it. Um, and I woke up, I think I was like 7 years old, and I was like, they're coming for you. Like this, I just had this big, like, they're coming for you, get up thing. And I went to the window and I'm looking outside, and I wear glasses, so I wasn't seeing everything correctly. And I just see this big image like flying towards the window, this dark spot. And I was like, yup, I knew it. They're coming for me. Like that was the thought. And then my window just fucking shatters, explodes all over me. And it was a piece of roofing from the barn next door. And I mean, I don't know. I don't know what those two, like maybe if I didn't get a scratch or a cut or anything. So maybe if I had stayed in the bed, I would have been hurt or something. Yeah, I got up and I had a window explode on me.
Yeah, I mean, there's really only a couple of explanations for that. Like, A, it's entirely coincidental, and congratulations on surviving it.
Right.
Or B, like, it was premonitory.
Right.
Or, or I guess C, there was something coming, and you woke up and it fucked up the whole plan, and then they threw some barn at you.
Right.
Which, which, personally, I hope that's the actual explanation.
Yeah. I'm
But
okay with that one.
still strange that there was some sort of warning. I think realistically, I would have to lean toward the brain picking up a pattern, maybe a change in the air pressure or something, and woke you up instinctively.
Yeah, and that's how my natural inclination is to find the explanation that makes the most sense and is the most logical, and not to
Sure.
go towards like a supernatural or like a conspiracy theory, but then like having that type of a mind always be like challenged by this dream world
Yeah,
is,
absolutely.
is kind of, it's an interesting thing. And then like, well, maybe should I be leaning more into
I
that
really
part of
think
myself?
it's important to come down the middle of the road. Like,
Mhm.
most things can probably be explained entirely with mundane solutions, you know? But there are definitely outlier cases where I know I've had weird experiences where mundane solutions just don't work. And I think the interesting thing about your exploding fucking barn story is is that it's also one of your green stories.
Mhm.
You know, so there's a weird tie there where you keep having these I don't know how to put it, connections with the color green, I guess, that give you
Yeah.
these strange experiences. I don't know.
Oh,
It's important to come down the middle of the road.
oof, I'm having another really fucking weird one.
Right now.
Yeah, that I didn't remember. Well, no, I just didn't remember this, but my entire family, one time we were coming home from getting ice cream, and so I say that because I recall the time. It would have been, a summertime thing. It still would have been like broad, like 6 o'clock at night after, like, I grew up on a farm. We ate dinner at 5 o'clock, went out for ice cream at 6 o'clock, middle of summer, and we all saw it. We all saw this fucking massive flash of green light look like it went into the ground, and we were all just like, what the fuck. Yeah, I was like not sure. I'm never sure like where to share this, but I do feel like this connection to like Fae energy.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And it's always been really strong, and I feel like it has something to do with the things that I dream up. And because I do, like, I know that I have this like charming like X factor with like people, but I feel it also with like plants and like animals, or I mean like trees. Trees talk to me so much. I feel like I see like mostly women's bodies when I look at trees, And it's like even more so when I'm fucking like on mushrooms. I'm just like, oh,
Sure.
hi,
Yeah.
you're just a woman, like just stretching your hands in the air kind of thing. It's like it's really intense. But yeah, like trees I feel super close to.
That would, I mean, just to entertain that and go right down that fucking whole ass path right there.
Hmm.
Um, that would definitely validate the idea of going somewhere in dreams
Right.
because you literally would be.
Right.
Um,
And maybe the green, the significance of like green.
yeah, it's a very foresty color. I
Yeah.
guess if Faye had a flag, it would probably be green.
Right.
So the Fae issue is going to come up again later, which take it however you'd like. I find the connection with the color green operating as a sort of door or invitation, maybe, to be incredibly intriguing. We are going to take a quick break here, and when we come back, we're jumping into one of the more bizarre experiences Caitlin has told me about, with a strange men in beige element, and even one experience within a shared dream space. So sit tight, we'll be right back. All right, let's get back to the dreams. I want to talk about the one I constantly bring up whenever we talk about this shit, the
Yeah.
Workman thing, which kind of, as far as I understand it, isn't a dream or might not necessarily be a dream.
It didn't it didn't it was very confusing. Because it felt different. Like I said, my dreams are always very, very like I can touch and taste and I'm very present in them. But this was like, oh, I'm getting up for work. Like my dream dreams are usually like, oh, I'm in this fucking castle, like, and here's a book, like,
Right,
not like
fantastic.
yeah, very fantastic. Um, okay, so this happened at our place in Sweet Road in Queensbury, and Jesse and John had gone to work, and I knew that my landlord hadn't like I didn't have a landlord that would just like pop in or send people to work like that wasn't the style. And I woke up and I do recall the air feeling or like almost like feeling like a smokiness, but not like you couldn't taste it or smell it or anything, but there was like
Thicker.
a yeah, like a thicker, cloudier sort of air. And I could hear people in my house, and my like thought was, oh, the landlord sent over someone to fix something, but we didn't have anything broken in our house. So, but like I like soothed myself and was like, oh yeah, these are people that were sent here, probably by my landlord, to work on something. And I slipped out of bed. I remember the feeling of like sliding out of the sheets. And I walked into the living room and I saw two men working. If I recall, it was like jumpsuit, not like definitely not like black suits. They were wearing like workers' uniforms. Um, and I and the like they were like, you're not supposed to be here, or like something along the lines of like no one was supposed to be here. And then snap back, I woke up back in my bed, exact same thing, going, oh, I hear people in the living room. Oh, I'm gonna get up and see, what that's all about. And then walking out. and then having the same like interaction. I don't even know if they necessarily spoke to me, but it was like you could tell I had that like that logic of like, oh, they don't think I'm supposed to be here, or they didn't know I was going to be here, and then just boom. And it happened I 3 consecutive times with the confusion. And then the last time that I woke up, I was like, I don't think that's real.
The first time we talked about this, you had mentioned that for you it was like repeating waking up, but it seemed like they had continued to do things. Like for them, time passed normally, but you were getting sort of reset. Like you were seeing them going back to bed, falling asleep, waking up, and they were still working on whatever they were working on.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It just felt like I felt like Groundhog's Day.
But not for them though. For them,
no, but I think that's where the waking up with the assurance of like, oh, these guys are supposed to be here, but knowing that knowing that in my waking life, like that wasn't a thing that was happening. My landlord didn't send anybody. There wasn't anything broken in the house, but I kept waking up feeling assured, like just telling myself like, oh yeah, you know this is happening. And then like going into the living room, and then it was like them like just giving the vibes of like, whoa, you're not supposed to be in here. And then like a reset for me, like, hi, I'm just waking up for my day.
Yeah. So did you ever follow up on that? Did you ever see if anything was amiss in the living room, or did you ask anybody if somebody was supposed to stop by the house?
I told it to both Jesse and John, and they were like, they're not really like it, they're just like, oh, okay, it's having a crazy dream again, like,
Yeah.
like, so I didn't even consider it really until I told it to you. I was like, oh, I had this one crazy dream, and then you told me about the Men in Black thing. I started looking at that, and I was like, oh, like, holy shit, that feels right, because it felt so real. That's the thing. It like felt like real in terms of like waking my normal average waking life, and not real in terms of like my fantastic tasting things I've never tasted before, like
So yeah, it was because we did establish earlier that you do have realistic dreams, but this was not that to you at the time. This was
no, it
real.
It stood out as not like specifically not being that, and that's like why I thought it was so weird.
So yeah, let's dive into this. So do you remember anything about their appearance besides them just wearing work suits,
like white
jumpsuits?
jump work suit, or like a cream colored work suit.
Okay.
I feel like definitely like lighter complected, but I'm not remembering any like specific features, and I feel like darker hair, but they both looked similar.
Sure. Was there a certain area in the room that they seemed to be focused on?
Fireplace. They were every time by like that. Remember that fireplace? It was like a big, like, stone. It took up
Yeah.
like the whole wall.
Yeah. Was it even operable? I don't remember it ever
Yeah.
running.
Yep, yeah, we used it.
Hmm.
I do remember. I remember one of the times that I got up, I was like, I'm gonna just try going downstairs.
Oh, you tried to beat the pattern.
Yeah, and I was like, yeah, maybe I'll just it was this weird thing of like recollection and then not, and like almost like self-soothing to be like, oh, this is supposed to happen. But then like one of the times I was like, I keep waking up and doing the same thing over, and then waking up and and it's like weirding me out. So I tried to go downstairs, and same thing, but that was the only time that I tried to do anything different.
Do you remember how far you got downstairs?
Like halfway.
Okay. First landing?
No, halfway to the first landing, so probably
Oh,
like
it's only a couple steps.
steps, yeah.
Interesting. And then it's just wake back up. There's no like falling asleep, there's no black, it's just wake back up.
I was just wake back up. Yeah, it was not like, oh, I'm transported, or I feel like I'm being like carried, or like it was just like, oh, eyes are open again, like that Groundhog Day.
And besides, I guess, sending you back to sleep, they didn't seem interested in you at all, because you said they had said no one was supposed to be here. So besides putting you back to bed, they didn't seem, you were not the goal.
No, I didn't get that vibe.
That's really wild. Had anything occurred in the weeks prior, or maybe even the weeks after, that sticks out? Was there any weird experiences? See anything in the sky? Any particularly weird dreams? Anything like that?
Probably nothing that I can conjure up now, because I feel like, again, a lot of this stuff has a lot of space of me being like, oh, just apply logic to that, and don't dive down. And
Yeah.
so yeah, and I think now I'm much more like open to like researching and at least taking a look, because like, what, why the fuck else am I being shown these things? And I think you and I were saying one time that like once you're an open vessel for this kind of stuff, I feel like it just keeps happening to you. And I was talking about like having like an X factor where like I've lived a fucking completely insane life because I generally like yes everything and just
Yeah.
like allow. So like there's always this current, I feel like, of energy where like you name it, I've done it in in like the most extreme fashion. It's just like a weird thing. So I feel like I just pull some of the craziness my way.
For sure. Yeah, I've definitely heard a lot of people talk about anybody who allows themselves to be seen will be seen. Like
Yeah.
once you start accepting that things might not be all that's the material world, you start seeing everything that is not the material world.
Yeah.
That's really what I don't know what to make of that dream, or dream in big old fucking air quotes,
That
because
experience.
it's so bizarre. Like, obviously, a frog lying to you and you ripping the head off a demon is bizarre, but there's something really grounded and unsettling about the Workman one that, whenever we talk about this sort of thing, I always come back to, because it's just very. It's not malicious, but it seems deceptive and secretive and just unsettling in general.
Yeah, and maybe some energy was coming my way that they were like trying to, or maybe I would have discovered something.
Yeah,
Had
like if
they
you
not
if
been
you had
there.
looked in the fireplace maybe, or shook a
Right,
loose brick. Yeah.
right. Had they not been there to like do whatever they were supposed to do.
Do you think the fourth time you woke up, they were like, Jesus fucking Christ?
This bitch, probably. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it was this weird, like, again, every time it was like the first time they were like almost like, whoa, shit, you're not supposed to be. I think the first they were like, you're not supposed to be awake. And then it
We
was
have
like,
we
what's
hear
that?
that a lot in some abduction stories, is that people will wake up in the middle of an abduction and surprise whatever entities are there, and they'll be like, ah, shit.
Hang on, you're not supposed to be here. Yeah, and I think the first time it was very like, oh shit, you're not supposed to like be awake for this. And then the next times it was more like, hey, get out of here. Because I feel like at first it was like very like surprised and like I feel like they spoke to me first time, but then the other times they were just like it was more of like a feeling, like an inclination, like this feeling that they were like, in dream logic when you can like surmise, you don't need like the full information to be
Sure.
like, oh, that person doesn't like me, or like, oh, this person doesn't want me here.
I can do that in real life.
Yeah.
That's
For sure.
yeah, it's funny that they were wearing like cream work outfits, because there are a lot of reports of what who was it that wrote that book? Was it somebody wrote a book about men in beige, which is essentially what you're talking about. Yeah, it's essentially people in brown coveralls that
What?
give people these super bizarre experiences. I'll see if I can track it down and send you the link. It's
Oh.
Yeah, which is another reason that story sticks out to me.
Yeah, and another thing that I didn't fucking know, like, I didn't know that. And like again, I'm always leaving room for like maybe you pulled that out of collective consciousness or heard it.
Men in beige is a pretty niche topic.
Right. Right. Yeah. I was like, it was when you brought up the Men in Black thing. I was like, oh, I know that they definitely weren't wearing suits. They were wearing like jumpsuits. They were like a cream color.
Yeah, there's a whole book. I'll track it down and try to send it your way. It's weird.
I do have one more that recently happened to me that has a very well, I'll just tell it. So it's super significant because I shared a dream with someone.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, so I have this friend who I've known forever, and we were kind of like sort of like popular outcasts together. Like Salem's a super small town, so everyone's friends anyway. But like we were kind of like the art smart kids who like didn't go to school on Fridays because we would go like take tests in another school, like and we connected, but like we were also kind of like we were outliers, like fuck school, fuck this shit, but like getting the highest grades. So we had this connection, and we were both, not from like wealthy families, so we had the connection on that. And so I guess I'm getting at like he's definitely a soulmate of mine who I've known from a very young age, and we don't need to talk or anything. And then the next time I see him, it's like just an immediate like, oh, you are part of my heart. Like this is an easy relationship.
Sure.
And we've never spoken that, but so I've always been really connected to this person. And his mom died and was I remember him telling me that she like loved me a lot, and it was another thing where I didn't feel like we spoke to each other very much, but just like kind of knew we were kindred. So yeah, I probably haven't. My friend's name is Chris. So I hadn't talked to him since like for like 6 months. We partied over the summer or something like that, had a little fire, and then in the like early spring, I have this dream where I'm walking into a gig. So I'm a musician, and in real life, and so I spend a lot of my free time, my travel time, like it's very normal to me to be going to like through a dirty alley through the back of a club to like load in. So this is where I'm at, and the other band that was like loading in with us were saying to me like, oh, our guitarist, his mom said that he really needs you. And I was feeling incredibly stressed because I couldn't remember who this person was in the dream. I didn't recognize them visually. I didn't know who it was, but I knew that I knew them, and I was doing this whole like, oh, it's you. There you are. Hey. And like knowing that it was all on me because I didn't fucking recognize this person, and like just like being like, what the fuck, brain? Like figure this out. Know who
Yeah.
this is. And I opened the door to go into the club, and it's not a club, it's an opulent hotel. Just this like ornate, like just people and drinking champagne and like very fancy, a total scene change from the dirty alley where I'm loading in. And then so me and this person who I'm supposed to know kind of have this sidebar where I'm still trying to play off the like, oh, it's you. And then silly little thing, but it does have significance. I looked down and my shirt was open and my tits were totally out, and I was like, oh my god, sorry, and like covered up. And like we were hugging and we were like being close to each other, but like I was just so mad at myself because I couldn't remember who it was. So I I think like what a fucking weird dream. The next day it gets to be evening time. I get a text message from Chris. He's like, hey, normally wouldn't hit you up to tell you about this weird dream that I had about you. He's like, but I feel really compelled to for some reason. And I was like, what? So he's a hiker. So his like normal scenery is like hiking. So he said his dream started off with him in the night on a lake rowing a boat out to a cabin that he could see that was lit up and it looked like warm and nice. And he gets to it, he opens the door, on a fucking opulent hotel room. But and it's not a tiny like cabin as it had appeared from the outside. So it was huge, ornate, but in his like what he was seeing was like it was like a alternate reality, like basically like a fairyland. There were like people with tails and like drinking things that he's never seen before, and it's like it's a fucking like sounded like a fucking fairy party or like an alternate reality or dimensional party. And he said that he looked when he got in, he felt kind of uneasy, and he looked over, and he's like, there you were dancing on a table. You were covered in fur, and you were naked. I was topless. So this is where that like, oh, I looked down
Yeah,
like,
that size.
and he's like, yeah, you had these really crazy like crazy colored eyes, and you were dancing, and I moved to say hi to you, but then you looked at me, and I knew that it wasn't the right version of you, and that I couldn't say hi.
Interesting.
Well, I'm having this dream where I can't remember who he is.
Right, you vaguely recognize them, but it's not locking
And
in.
he's having the dream that he recognizes me for sure, but knows that it's not the right me, or that he can't, like, that it's not okay to approach in this moment.
Wild.
Right?
Wild. I don't. You just met there. Period.
We bumped together in the astral plane.
That's crazy. Have you ever had out of body experiences? Like legit ones you knew were not dreams.
No, I don't think so.
Because that's exactly what that kind of sounds like. Especially with you talking about a connection to Fae earlier.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like you were just like, fuck this human shell. I'm gonna go be a forest nymph for a little while, and I'll meet my friends there.
Yeah. And like the weird shit of like the little detail of like, oh, my tits are out. Like,
Yeah, that's a crazy connection.
him being like, oh, it was so weird. You were topless, but you were covered in fur.
Yeah.
And you were dancing on a table.
Wild.
Yeah, like maybe I like shed my human, maybe I'm like not ready to bring my human memories into fucking my fairy orgy that I was at, and he just like stumbled upon it. And then I think the weird like significance of us both being in places that make sense for us in our waking lives, and then the opening of the door into like opulence and being a hotel.
That is really crazy. I've heard of a few other people who have shared dreams, or more regularly shared weird like drug trips.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as drug trips go, I usually like have to write them off because it's drugs,
Right.
But two people in separate places confirming similar dreams, that one's harder to write off.
Right. And like just the fact that they were these like weird mirror images of each other.
Yeah, really bizarre.
Yeah. And like he reached out the very next day.
Yeah, and he was like, I feel compelled.
Yeah, I feel compelled, and also like, I'm sure we've dreamed about each other often in our lives and never
Sure.
wanted to be like, it's not he's like I know this is super cheesy to be like I had a dream about you, but like it felt super weird and I just wanted to tell you. And as he's telling me, I'm just like, my stomach's just dropping, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, it was you.
Do you ever keep a journal? Dream journal?
But I got him. Like,
I mean, true, but the dream journal is really nice for like validation later, because like something could trigger you to make you sort of remember you saw something in a dream, but the brain's tricky. Like you might not have necessarily dreamed it, but you think you dreamed it or whatever.
I had at one point actually, and I probably should keep doing that.
I did back in January, and there were a number of things that popped out that were very odd. On one entry, I wrote the word arboretum, and I just circled it, and I woke up and I had no fucking idea why. Elizabeth and I went out to Marfa a couple weeks later, and we were driving back, and I was listening to a podcast about dreams, and my brain said arboretum over and over, and I started thinking about this circled word arboretum. At that moment, in Austin, there was a shooting at an arboretum.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was super, super weird. And there's a bunch of random shit in my January dream journal
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
I made a prediction about Elizabeth's mother that was I felt very certain of, and I'm hoping it's not a real prediction.
Yeah.
But I wish I knew a good hypnotherapist, because I would love to go under hypnotherapy or have someone like you go under hypnotherapy just to see what would come out. But so many of them are quacks, you
Right.
know.
Right.
I would need a non-partial one, because I definitely 100% do not buy some of your dreams as just being dreams.
Right.
So I'd really be interested to see what's going on there. I also have a strong feeling that something happened before or after your Workman dream.
Right. Yeah, I would be willing to bet. But I definitely have, I always have these like wild things going on. The only thing that I could think about when you first asked me that I was like conjuring up was that I was in the middle of like a very weird thing with a stalker who was like
Do you remember the
catfishing.
date?
No.
Hmm.
No, I just remember like the time frame. Yeah, I was dealing with someone who was like kind of catfishing me through all these different accounts. In my waking life, there's always something fucking nuts going on, and then in my dream life, there's always something fucking nuts going on. So it just always feels like a lot. But yeah, I should try to like isolate and recall maybe things that happen in or around these dreams.
Do you meditate at all?
Well, I do yoga every day. Um, I don't. I I will meditate sometimes. I have to do, but I have to do like guided with like with like Spotify or whatever, and I usually just like pass out pretty easily.
Sure.
I had a
Um,
spirit reading recently that was fucking cool.
How'd that go?
It was it was my friend and they weren't doing it for like I didn't pay for it. Um they were we were hanging out and they felt compelled and asked if they could. Um and I was like, yeah, and it was honestly our first, we've known each other for a while, but it was our first one-on-one significant hangout. They were like uh hitting some weird shit. So I had been having a bunch of dreams about my paternal grandmother. And my parents um always kind of like gate kept her from me. In like a way where I felt like, she was kind of like made fun of as like cheesy. And then when I remember her, my memories are only of her like, taking a cup and like washing my hair, like all these really lovely memories. And she was always at every recital, even when she was like riddled with cancer and very old, she's still driving 20 minutes out to Salem to come and see me do anything. And she put me in her will. She's got 5 of her own children and put like 3 of them in the will, and plus me and no one else. And like then like this is a Salem family, so like fucking hundreds of grandkids. Like um she puts me in there. She left me this chest and she left me this ring. This cool
Okay, yeah.
ring, which is like the only piece of jewelry that I've ever felt compelled to wear.
Definitely has
Um,
a soul in it.
yeah, for sure. And I remember thinking it was strange. And then when she, a few months later, I felt very sad because I felt like I didn't give her her due, I guess. I didn't feel like I had like loved her enough. And it was something that I was just reflecting on, and I had been talking to Jake about it, and I had been talking to Ian about it, and just it had been coming up, coming up, coming up. And here's this person who just fucking met me and does not know this story, was like your maternal grandmother or paternal. Like you could, it's like 50-50 that Ohm could have just gotten that fucking wrong.
Sure, yeah.
Very specifically, it was like your paternal grandmother wants to be around you but is afraid that you don't want her. And I was like, no, I've been thinking about how much I want her. And she was like, good, okay. She wants to let you know that she is always on your shit, always there, like still
Awesome.
actively like caring. And it was just such a weird. And then pulled out a bunch of other shit that was like super on the nose, 100% accurate, especially for like a stranger.
Well, that's all I got for you, Kate.
Yeah, that was cool.
That's like, yeah, you gave me a bunch of, like an hour's worth of shit to work through. Awesome. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. I'll definitely try to send you that book of the Men in Beige, or at least a link to it, because I'm not going to buy it.
Where am I pulling that from? Holy shit.
Yeah, that's super crazy. And the Rennes le Chateau, also very crazy.
Yeah, that was so weird. Logan was like horrified when I was he was like, I'm scared. He's like, I think you were visited by a demon last night. Like, it felt very biblical and like, but I didn't even know that this place was supposedly biblical. I just heard him say it once and I was like, he's a ranter. So I was like, you just talked to me about electrons for like 2 hours. I'm emotionally exhausted. I remember like a hard stop on that. So I was like, tell me about the chateau tomorrow. And I knew nothing about it. And then I had this like biblically themed dream where I pull off a demon head and it shrinks, and a frog is lying to me.
The frog, I want to know more about the frog, honestly. I'm gonna look into lying frogs. That might be like a labyrinth thing. I'm sure you've seen Labyrinth.
It was definitely like very, I was like going down corridors and trying to find this book, like, and the fact that like they supposedly have knowledge of heaven and hell, and I like find a room of books. Like, it's just shit that you can't make it up. Like, weirdly connected.
Yeah.
That I didn't know.
Odd. Is there anything you want to plug, Caitlin? This will be going out on Monday, I believe.
Ooh, cool. Our Candy Ambulance's EP is coming out July 9th, so get ready, everybody. We're gonna call it Hard Boiled.
All right, dude. Well, Caitlin, it was great talking to you. I miss you, buddy.
I miss you too.
Thank you so much.
Bye. See you later.
And that's that. Thank you so much, Caitlin, for being on the show and sharing that, well, to be honest, truly bizarre shit, which I really feel that under further investigation, possibly hypnotherapy or meditation, may prove to be even more bizarre. Make sure you check out Caitlin's band, Candy Ambulance, on all the places you get music, and especially the new album this July. I'll leave some links for them in the show notes. But for now, that's our show. Thank you so much for hanging out with us, for joining us whether again or for the first time on this, the very beginning of Season 2. We've got so much cool shit coming up this season, and I can't wait to get into it. One quick note, however, is that for the foreseeable future, this pod will become bi-weekly, for a number of reasons. If you'd like clarification, I recently tweeted quite a lot about it, but otherwise, every 2 weeks now. The music underneath the segments was provided by the immensely talented ambient artist Iron Cthulhu Apocalypse, whose links will also be in the show notes. Make sure you're following us on all of the socials. Currently, I am most active on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, where, as I said earlier, I spend a lot of time debunking obvious fakes and rolling my eyes out of the back of my skull. Also, make sure you're subbed to our YouTube for our weekly paranormal news show, Weird Week, where every Monday I give a quick rundown of a handful of the events that happened that week that caught my eye, as well as a handful of other series I've been working on. The TikTok one, of course, that comes out intermittently, and another called Strange Trip, where I try to visit various locations with paranormal histories. Not ghost shit, there's 8 million people doing that. Currently, there is 1 episode out, and until I can raise some more money, there's going to be 1 episode out. But that's that. My name is Asa Morris, and this, of course, is Low Strangeness. Thank you so much for joining us. Take care of yourselves and the people around you. Be safe out there. See you in 2 weeks.